Hello, how would you answer if someone asked who do you admire? A successful business person, or a famous person who left a great name in history, or whom most people will think about at first as special people? I want to answer that to be my own father. Of course, he's not a great person in the eyes of others. He is an ordinary person who spent his entire life as a civil servant. He worked in a job related to construction and development, so if he put his mind to it, he could have easily made a large fortune with the money from secretly handing over the development plan information. But my father never took a bribe. Until the day he retired, his assets were a civil servant pension and enough savings to not borrow money from others, but he was rather proud of himself. You can get a pair of nice shoes from your daughter and wear them to commemorate your retirement, Dad. No, the ones I have now are fine to wear, so why waste money? It's not that fine to wear. I know that even the soles that have fallen off have been replaced several times. Hey, I'm telling you, I don't need new shoes. Why? Because you're a civil servant. Are you afraid people will point fingers at you for being extravagant with money you got under the table? It's not like that, and everyone knows it. But why? From tomorrow, you won't be a civil servant anymore either. It's not because I'm a public servant, and it's because I saw too many people whose small greed easily spread to bigger greed. I don't want to be like that. Well, I guess since you worked in construction and land development, you must have seen a lot of speculators and swindlers. Of course, there are many unscrupulous public officials who are corrupt. I can't even count. People change and break down in an instant in front of millions of dollars trading hands with money. That's why there's no cure for that. Still, I'm a bit disappointed. You're retiring from a job you have worked for your whole life. It's not for me. Rather, it's nice to be able to leave proudly. Really, my daughter recognizes that her father lived his entire life as clean as the morning dew. God knows that I'm happy enough just to be able to retire and be an example to the new incoming civil servants. Even after his retirement, my father did not touch any of those common real estate investments. Because he has so much information in his work, he might use the information illegally without even knowing it. He said he was worried that a wrong person had greed and was obsessed with real estate investments. My mother-in-law's addiction to stocks was the first thing that came to my mind when I heard about it. Not only did my father have the integrity to be clean-handed, but he also had the foresight to warn me about the dangers of greed, especially in real estate investment, around the time of his retirement. He cautioned that people can change and break down in an instant when faced with the lure of millions of dollars, and there is no cure for that. But the root of my mother-in-law's downfall was jealousy. Her sister-in-law, a farmer in a rural area, suddenly found herself sitting on a pile of money after selling her land, which she had barely subsisted on. This sight made my mother-in-law, who had been in rivalry with her sister-in-law throughout her married life, intensely jealous. She would have been jealous even if her own sister had become rich overnight, but the fact that it was her husband's sister made it even worse for her. topic with the mindset of if you can become rich, why can't I? She turned her attention to real estate. Rising unbeknownst to my husband and me, she impulsively bought land, scraping together all the money she had from the equity in her house, car, and insurance cancellation refund. The result was only accumulated losses. At that point, she could have recovered her losses if she had stopped, even though the immediate losses were painful, and she wouldn't have become addicted to real estate investment as she had been to stocks. However, as the losses piled up, her obsession only grew. She believed that since it hit rock bottom, the prices would increase. As for us, we were unaware of her actions at the time. We only found out when she suddenly visited our house. If she had called us earlier, we would have left work early to meet her. But never mind. Both of us were working, so it would have been difficult to take time off. Did you have any trouble getting here? Not at all. Public transportation is so convenient, so it wasn't difficult. Public transportation. What about your car? My car? Well, Anyway, I came to see how my son is doing. Of course, I also wanted to see you. I have some business in the nearby area too. Oh, so you'll be staying for a few days? Is that inconvenient for you? Of course not. I'll get the guest room ready, so make yourself at home. She stayed with us for a few days, going out early in the morning and returning late at night, looking completely preoccupied. Whenever we asked her where she had been, she was evasive, and we became worried, and those worries surfaced into reality. When we came home after work, she was at home for a change. She cooked up a feast and set it on the dining room table. I prepared it with care. Eat slowly and listen. Are you trying to tell us something important? I have been checking into various things, and the real estate in this neighborhood has risen quite a bit. Mother, were you looking around the real estate in this area because you're thinking of living in this neighborhood? How about selling your house? I beg your pardon? There's a new property I've been looking at near here. Wait a minute, Mother. You're not saying you're going to take the money from the sale of this house and invest in another real estate, are you? Why not? What nonsense. No matter what anyone says, half of this is my son's hopes. It's not something you should argue with. The other half is also my house. And no matter how much my husband is your son, he's definitely a separate, independent family member. So it can't be that way. Do you think that I would put my son and my daughter-in-law out on the streets? This is so that it will be beneficial to you as well as me. So don't talk back and just do as you're told. I couldn't even speak to her ridiculous claim, but my husband, who had been silent listening to his mother, suddenly asked her critically why she was bringing up real estate. Then she became angry and complained about her sister-in-law, striking it rich with the real estate, expressing her jealousy. She felt injustice that it happened to her sister-in-law and not her. But true, when my husband saw her in that pathetic state, he looked as if he felt terrible. So, I first asked my husband to leave us briefly. Then I sat down with my mother-in-law again and asked her, "So, what's the current situation with the land you said you put all your money into?" She replied very calmly, as if she thought it was no big deal. I heard that a sewage treatment plant is coming in rather than a condominium complex. I'm sorry, Mother. That's not something to be casual about right now. Then, shall I cry and sob? I'm not ruined yet. I don't mean that, but I'm saying that you should get out of the investment quickly, as fast as you can. For whose benefit should I do that? Do you want those individuals to take my place in benefits when I leave? How can you be so thoughtless of someone who is supposed to be educated? It's the principle of real estate that the losses are made with a larger amount of money. If there is a loss, borrow money to make up for it. And you keep doing that. And then what? Then it hits the jackpot. The land value will drop all the way to the bottom. That's why I'm telling you to put up the money. With the money from selling this house, I will invest in another real estate. The look of my mother-in-law shouting at me all of a sudden seemed like a person who lost her mind. She was like an addicted gambler, so she was becoming greedier, and I needed to nip it in the bud at the onset. I'm telling you clearly, I can't give you the house and get back the money you invested in real estate right away, because it can get you into big trouble. Then you can lease the house. First of all, let's start with the lease. And for the time being, get a loan against it. You guys can live in a studio somewhere. I'll pay you back right away with a lot of money on top of the principal of the rent you pay. You can trust me. Right then, my husband, who was waiting inside our bedroom and listening in to his mom, was shocked and ran out into the dining room screaming. We worked very hard to buy this house. Even you know that I got the loans against it from our jobs, and we're able to barely buy it. Now, do you want to take it and put it into another real estate investment? Why don't you say that you'd rather go gambling like you used to do? If you don't want to give up your house, then why don't you get the money out of your retirement pension early? Get hold of yourself. Aren't you ashamed in front of your daughter-in-law? Do you think you should squeeze the blood out of your son to pour the money into the hopeless real estate? It's only right that you should give up at this point. I can't do that. I can't give up and lose the precious money that I've lost so far. I'll definitely succeed in real estate and sit on a pile of money like your aunt. My mother-in-law, who quarreled so badly with my husband, took our dining room table and overturned it in anger. I sent her back to her house and warned her very coldly once again. It's too dangerous for non-experts to get involved in the real estate market full of speculators and scammers. We are strongly against your doing any real estate investing without proper preparation, so don't come to us with such nonsense again. Don't expect anything from us. Literally, as soon as I finished my words, my mother-in-law left, cursing us so viciously that we couldn't even repeat what she said to us. Exor, of course. Then and now, my husband and I have no regrets or lingering feelings for my mother-in-law for nipping in the bud of her greediness. If we hadn't done that, my mother-in-law was like an uncontrollable runaway locomotive. As episodes, even in the short period of time when she lived without contacting us, her addiction to real estate investment went out of control. Those were much bigger than when she came to see us. A few days after we quarreled with my mother-in-law, my husband and I went on a short vacation at a fishing spot with my parents since it had been a long while, and we were trying to heal from the situation. Trying to heal from the havoc caused by my mother-in-law. It wasn't until the last night of the vacation that my father revealed a shocking fact. Do you remember what I said before about how money ruins people? Of course I remember. Dad, no way. It was very hard because your mother-in-law barged in for several days in a row. What was she saying? Does she want money from you? Dad? She was going to invest in the real estate, right? I said that there are only public servant pensions and a small installment savings plan for old age. Then she asked me to take out my pension in a lump sum, and since she will be responsible for my old age, she asked me to break the installment savings plan, and her eyes were the same as the broken people I saw when I was a civil servant. So you didn't give her the money, did you? Of course. I refused, but after hesitating for a long time, my dad, with great difficulty, continued to speak. What he said was flabbergasting. She kept demanding that I introduce to her the public official who works in the real estate development office. Now, she was going to approach a very public official and bribe to get out the secret real estate development information. She's now being reckless and doing illegal things, isn't she? Calm down. I didn't introduce her to anyone. Good. Don't ever be swayed by her. You don't know what she will do to bribe and do things shady. And if you aren't careful, you would take all the blame. Of course, you would know better than anyone how dangerous that is. But it seemed that your mother-in-law was very desperate. The value of the land fell lower than the price of a studio rental. If it got down to that level, her investment is nothing but pennies now. So, I don't understand how she became greedy and became blinded by it. Don't pay any attention to her and don't feel sorry for her either. But if anything happens, be sure to call us right away, okay? We ended our vacation with even heavier thoughts, and on our way home, neither of us could easily bring up the subject. My husband, who was driving in silence, said, "How could she act so offensive to my father-in-law, who has lived honestly all his life?" I know we need to do something about your mom. Every minute is like walking on thin ice. My husband didn't say anything. Don't worry about yourself and let's discuss it together. Let's find a solution together. We're husband and wife. Penny? Yes. I think there's only one way, no matter how hard I thought it over. I don't think we can stop my mom even if we tried. So, Melanie, why are you hesitating? Spit it out. You're making me nervous. Let's get divorced. What? I can't look at you and I can't even apologize to her mom and dad because I feel so sorry. I will get my mom away from you and your family. So you go on living with your mom and dad and live happily, as if nothing has happened. I wondered how shocked my husband must have been and felt so guilty to even think about getting divorced. I felt sad for him. Of course, I wouldn't accept that we get divorced. that wasn't even my husband's fault, and when I vowed that I would protect our family, which included my husband. I could never leave my husband. Before I answer, let me ask you one thing. When my dad was retiring, you bought a pair of new shoes for my dad? Even though I offered to buy my dad a pair of new shoes as his daughter, my father wouldn't accept it from me. But what did you say to my dad that he accepted your present? I sighed. I respect you, Father. But why are you asking when you know that already? How could I not know that? My dad bragged about it so much to me that he got a son. He became a father whom his son respects. So it was worth living honestly and ethically. When I heard that from him, do you know what I thought of? This Buster loves my parents very much. Isn't that true? He said nothing. Get divorced? Okay, let's do that. But if you are divorcing me to protect my parents, don't do that. That's not helping me. That day, we re-examined how we loved each other and barely were able to overcome the risk of getting divorced, but we had no room to set up any countermeasures to resolve the situation about my mother-in-law. Next day, I was busy trying to catch up to piled-up work when I got a phone call. It was a piece of news from a public official who used to work under my dad before my dad retired. He told me that my mother-in-law had taken the wedding guest list somehow and was going around to contact the public officials who were related to land development planning. I had to stop her at all costs and rushed over to where she was. What doing mother of my worries became a reality again. My mother-in-law was making a big scene in the city hall. Every sentence, she was referring to my dad's name. I cringed at her every word. She was throwing a tantrum that she came because of a referral from my dad and demanded that the public official in charge comes out to meet her, and if he doesn't, she's going to commit suicide right then and there. When the younger clerks threatened to call the police if she kept interfering with their work, she again brought up my dad's name and looked as if she was ready to slap the clerk. She yelled that she was upset since the clerk didn't give her due respect, and to her in-law, who was a retired public official. My husband rushed over after I called him, and my husband and I were barely able to drag her out of there and into the parking garage. But she was already out of control, and she slapped her son and me ferociously. Then I asked her, "Do you really have to be this way? How do you think your son will feel watching you act so crazy like that? With your greed, do you feel better putting my father's good name and reputation into the sewer? Now that my whole life savings turned into nothing but trash, what couldn't I do? Who do you blame? No one in your family pushed you to gamble in real estate. We tried to stop you. If you had pulled out when we told you, then you wouldn't have ended up to this extent. If you had given me the money by selling your house, this wouldn't have happened. Did you just call me a bitch? Yes, you're so selfish. If you had sold your house and invested in a prime real estate location, then it would have been enough to make up for all of the losses I had. Not only make up the losses, but I would have been able to sit on top of piles of money. We were speechless. Why are you saying nothing? Now, do you regret it? Are you repenting that you should have listened to your mother-in-law? that then go and bring me the money right away. Whether you sell your house or get your pension money, and while you're at it, make an appointment with your dad too. These bastards won't see me unless I have your dad accompany me. If I say no, what if we can't do any of that? Then you and I are over. I will cut you off from my family. If you don't want to make her husband an orphan, get me the money and an appointment with your father. When she was in such a state of mind, we couldn't come up with any solution. Then my dad came to me and gave me a hint of a wise solution. Why don't you let her see it? Let her see what? Of herself. How ugly she is turned into. A few days later, my husband and I called my mother-in-law first. I told her that there was a place to go see where my dad had referred. She seemed very excited and showed it openly and followed us. We drove for a while, and where we arrived was a large piece of land where it was vacant with nothing to see for miles except for sandy ground, and only one container box was placed there. It was a real estate office. I guess she assumed that it was a place where she would get the land development information. Instantly, her face became cheerful. Then, as soon as we entered, a horrible scene was in front of our eyes. Inside the container were full of those people who lost their money in real estate investments as addicts, with some chained smoking cigarettes, shouting curses while others sobbed and wailed on the floor. They all were duped into investing thinking that major development of townhouses was coming. And along with commercial development, and they just believed the rumors and tried to secure the undeveloped plots and became penniless. Not like even with the realization that it was a scam. Some were talking on the phone, begging to borrow money or act as if they would hit a big jackpot overnight, all acting out of pitiful desperation. They were just like my mother-in-law, who was driven to the brink of hell with hasty real estate investment. They didn't realize anything. If they had money, they had only one unfounded confidence that their next investment would surely succeed. It's that you was a mirror image of my mother-in-law, who had been harassing her family for a while. Perhaps my dad wanted to show it to my mother-in-law for her to see the same broken real estate addicts as she was. He wanted my mother-in-law to realize her wrongdoings and repent. But only then did I understand the deep meaning of my father, and I told my mother-in-law, who was staring at the addicts in a daze. You think carefully? Did they just take their own money and blow it up? No, don't ask. It's obvious, and then blew it up. Oh, don't ask. It's obvious. Oh, and they took it from their children, daughters-in-law, in-laws, eighth cousins, and lastly, they fearlessly borrowed even from the loan sharks. That person's family must have been rotting inside. It's pathetic. We were like that too. They were rotting inside because of you, Mother. No, there must have been even more. Do you understand our feelings now? What are you saying? How can you compare them to my case? Mother, you shouldn't look down on me just because I failed once. There's no such thing as two failures in my dictionary. Bring the money I talked about earlier. I will get the investment information directly from your dad, no matter what. Please open your ears and listen. Keep your eyes open and take a good look. What's the difference between those people and you, Mother? It looks the same to me. Just like you said, they are pathetic and ugly. I told you not to put me together with those failed people. I will definitely be different from those people. At that time, I heard the voices of addicts talking on cell phones one by one. Look, this is really good information. If you lend me just $300,000, I'll pay you back within a year. If you don't give me money by tomorrow, you're a bastard and I will cut you off from my family. As soon as possible, take out the loan against the house since it's leased. Or if that doesn't work, get an advance from Dad's retirement money. But all of them were saying exactly the same as what my mother-in-law told us. Finally, my mother-in-law began to look at the addicts with a terrified expression. Those people aren't even reflecting on themselves. Rather, they're denying. They're denying the reality. They are just dragging themselves down into a deeper abyss. Like you, Mother. Maid, just like me. Yes, you are the same. She then remained silent. I'll give you some time to think. If you can't give up on the real estate, yes, go ahead. But it's like you cut yourself off from us as a parent to your son. So just know that you don't deserve to feel resentful or feel lonely no matter what bad things happen in the future. At my parents, and I will never hand over even single help in the future. I won't stay still if you go around disgracing my father's name and his reputation just one more time. That day, my mother-in-law looked at the addicts who were just as ugly and broken as she was, and at my husband and me who were coldly leaving. She had a look of hopelessness and emptiness. Thus, if anyone asks me who is the person I admire the most in the world, my answer is still the same. It is my father. That's the same with my husband. Because steadfast ways as an honest and ethical person had a profound influence in our lives, who has already been a model for us. He even turned a person around when my mother-in-law seemed incapable of being saved. She has repented all her mistakes and is living in a Buddhist temple deep in the mountains. She did not become a formal Buddhist monk, but she is training her mind by cooking, cleaning, and meditating. She is looking well. She is reflecting on the futile greed that she tried to harm even her own family. I think all of this was possible thanks to the wisdom of my father. Picture if my mother-in-law didn't face the images of those real estate addicts, she wouldn't have realized her faults to the end. So, I trust upright people. The power they have is the good influence that changes people. I'm trying to live as a person like that. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope that you have good people next to you and wish you a happy life. Please cheer for me and write your comments of wisdom in the comment section. Pressing like and subscription is a big help to me. Have a wonderful day.